Resign quietly, and this all goes away. My nursing director slid the paperwork across her desk. 7 years of perfection. Destroyed in 72 hours. All because I told a mafia boss my deepest secret. He'd just been diagnosed HIV positive. Terrified. Broken. Am I dying? I should have said nothing. Stayed professional. Instead, I whispered, no. I've been undetectable for 7 years. You're going to live. That confession saved his life. And nearly destroyed mine. My name is Zainab Adebayo. Nigerian. 32 years old. An infectious disease nurse in Seoul, South Korea. And 3 weeks ago, I committed the one sin I swore I'd never make. I told a patient the truth. He was a mafia boss. And now, the entire hospital wants me gone. This is Afro Soul Romance Tales, where we tell the love stories no one else will. Subscribe to help this small channel bring more forbidden, emotional, real stories to your feed. But before I tell you how it all fell apart, you need to understand what I was protecting. And why. Room 427. Brought in at 2 in the morning, barely conscious. Someone inside his own organization had poisoned him. His people carried him through the ER doors wrapped in a coat, refusing to answer any questions until the doctors threatened to let him die on the gurney. The toxicology team spent 2 days trying to identify what was in his system. His organs were failing. His liver. His kidneys. Shutting down one by one. The doctors were running everything, full blood panels, organ function tests, the works, just trying to keep him alive long enough to figure out what they were fighting. That's when it showed up. Buried in the blood work. Not the poison they were looking for. HIV positive. Kim Ji-hoon. 34 years old. Known to police. Rumored to run one of the most powerful crime syndicates in Seoul. And he had absolutely no idea. He contracted it about 11 months ago. Never been tested. Ignored every symptom. Chalked it up to stress, late nights, the lifestyle. The kind of man who doesn't go to doctors. Who doesn't ask questions about his own body. He woke up on day 3. Disoriented. Weak. The poison was clearing his system, but the damage it had done was still being mapped. And then the doctor walked in with the results nobody had been expecting. I was in the room. Standard protocol for infectious disease cases. I watched the most dangerous man in Seoul, a man rumored to have killed people with his bare hands, crumble like a scared child. Not because of the poison. Not because someone in his own empire had tried to kill him. Because of a diagnosis he never saw coming. He was assigned to my care. And the moment that happened, something inside me shifted. Something I'd spent 7 years keeping locked down. Because I knew exactly what he was feeling. Every single second of it. To understand why that mattered, why a mafia boss's diagnosis could crack open something I'd buried so deep, you need to go back 8 years. To a parking lot in Lagos. To the worst phone call of my life. I was 25. In love. Planning a future with Kingsley, my college boyfriend. My first everything. We met at university in Lagos. He was studying medicine. I was in nursing school. We had plans. Get married, work at the same hospital, build a life together. I gave him everything. My time. My trust. My body. What I didn't know. He was giving those same things to at least 2 other women. Then I got sick. Flu symptoms that wouldn't quit. My clinical instructor suggested I get a full panel done, just to be safe. I remember sitting in that clinic waiting room, texting Kingsley about dinner plans. Completely oblivious. Miss Adebayo, your test came back positive for HIV. I remember laughing. Actually laughing. Because it had to be a mistake. That's impossible. I've only been with one person. My boyfriend. We're planning to get married. The doctor's face told me everything. It wasn't a mistake. I called Kingsley from the parking lot. Hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I just tested positive for HIV. Silence. Then, well, it didn't come from me. Kingsley, you're the only person I've ever been with. Maybe you should get retested. Lab errors happen. But we both knew. I made him get tested. Positive. He'd known for months. Been sleeping with other people. Never told me. Never protected me. When I confronted him, you know what he said. It's not my fault you got unlucky. Unlucky. Like I'd lost a coin toss. Not my health. Not my future. Not my ability to trust another human being. I dropped out of his life completely. Blocked him everywhere. Never spoke to him again. But the damage was done. I was 25, HIV positive, and about to start my nursing career in a field that would judge me for the very condition I was trained to treat. I thought about quitting. Thought about disappearing. Instead, I got angry. I started antiretroviral therapy immediately. Within 6 months, I was undetectable. U equals U. Undetectable equals untransmittable. I was safe to be around. Safe to work with patients. Safe to live a normal life. But try explaining that to people who still think HIV is a death sentence. I could have specialized in anything. Pediatrics. Cardiology. Labor and delivery. But I chose infectious disease. Not just to understand it, but to be the nurse I wish I'd had when I got my diagnosis. The one who doesn't look at you with pity. The one who says, "You're not dying. You're going to live." I graduated top of my class. Got certified in infectious disease management. And I never, ever told anyone my status. That's the version of me that walked into room 427. For 3 days, I watched Ji-hoon spiral. Refused medication. Refused to eat. Stared at the ceiling like he was already dead. His people came and went, dangerous-looking men in expensive suits, but he barely acknowledged them. I told myself I was just doing my job, monitoring a difficult patient. But watching him, this man who built an empire on fear, fall apart over a diagnosis I'd survived for 7 years, it hit somewhere I thought I'd sealed shut. Because I remembered that feeling. The believing your life was over. The way the world suddenly becomes impossibly small. When I first moved to Seoul, I thought I'd finally outrun it. Fresh start. New country. New language. Nobody asking about my past. But freedom is relative when you're a black woman in Korea. I love Seoul. The city, the culture, the food, the energy. But I'm not invisible here. I'm hypervisible. People stare. On the subway. In the grocery store. At the hospital. I learned quickly. I had to be perfect. Perfect Korean language skills. Perfect clinical performance. Perfect professionalism. Any mistake, and it wasn't just Zainab messed up. It was that foreign nurse messed up. So imagine being black, already othered. A woman, already dismissed in a male-dominated medical hierarchy. And HIV positive, the ultimate secret. I couldn't afford to be anything less than flawless. For 7 years, I perfected the art of invisibility. Medication in unmarked containers. Doctor appointments across town. Dated casually but never seriously, because how do you tell someone you're falling for that you're positive? I watched colleagues get promoted, get married, build lives. And I stayed small. Stayed safe. Stayed hidden. The irony? I was one of the best infectious disease nurses in that hospital. I knew HIV inside and out, not just from textbooks, but from living it. I could spot medication side effects before patients even reported them. I knew exactly what to say to a newly diagnosed patient. But I could never tell anyone why. On the 4th day, I was restocking his room. Late evening shift. I thought he was asleep. I pulled out my pill organizer to take my evening dose. My routine. Same time every day. What's that for? I froze. His eyes were open. Watching me. Just vitamins, I lied, shoving the organizer back into my pocket. He sat up slowly, gripping the bed rail to steady himself. His body was still recovering. The poison had done its damage, and the doctors were still undoing it. Vitamins? In a medical-grade organizer? Taken at the exact same time every day. Damn it. He was smarter than I thought. I didn't answer. Just continued restocking supplies, hands trembling slightly. You're afraid, he said quietly. Not a question. An observation. I'm just doing my job, Mr. Kim. You're afraid of me. I turned to face him. Should I be? He smiled, but there was no humor in it. Everyone else is. I've worked with worse, I lied. I hadn't. But something about his brokenness made me bolder than I should have been. That exchange should have been my warning. That the walls I'd built were already starting to shake. The next day, I made a mistake. A stupid, Careless mistake that would change everything. I stepped into the supply closet across from his room to take a call from my doctor. Routine check-in. Lab results. I thought the door was closed all the way. It wasn't. Yes, Dr. Park. My labs came back perfect. Undetectable again. 7 years strong. No side effects from the new formulation. Everything stable. I was smiling relieved, the way I always was when the results came back clean, when I turned around. Kim Ji-hoon was standing in the doorway. Our eyes met. My heart stopped. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. I'll call you back, I whispered and ended the call. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. The supply closet suddenly felt impossibly small. How long? His voice was quiet, desperate. I could have lied, should have lied, made up something about a family member, a friend, anything. I'd been lying about this for 7 years. One more wouldn't have mattered. But something in his eyes, the desperation, the fear, the hope, broke me open. 7 years. I've been HIV positive and undetectable for 7 years. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. So I'm not dying. It wasn't a question. It was a plea. I stepped closer. You're not dying. I'm proof. You take your medication, you get undetectable, you live a full life. I run marathons. I travel. I work 12-hour shifts. I'm healthy. His hands were shaking. They told me I have maybe a year if I don't start treatment. That it's already progressing. Then start treatment. Today. Right now. Why should I believe you? Because I have no reason to lie to you. I'm telling you something I've never told anyone in this hospital. Something that could cost me my career if it got out. I'm telling you because I see myself in you right now. And I remember how terrified I was. He started crying. This terrifying, powerful man just shattered. And without thinking, I put my hand on his shoulder. You're going to be okay. I promise. That was my first mistake. If you're still with me, hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next will break your heart. After that night, everything changed. He started taking his medication. Started eating. Started asking questions. And I answered them. All of them. Questions about side effects, viral load, CD4 counts, transmission, life expectancy. Questions nobody else could answer with the kind of intimate knowledge I had. He asked for me specifically during shift changes. Refused to talk to other nurses about his treatment. Only me. I told myself it was just good patient care. That I was helping him adjust. That this was what I'd trained for. But I was lying to myself. He called me at 2 in the morning with panic attacks. What if the medication stops working? What if I infect someone? What if people find out? I should have told him to call the hospital helpline. Instead, I answered. Every single time. The medication works. You won't infect anyone once you're undetectable. And people don't need to know unless you want them to. You didn't tell anyone. No. Why? I was quiet for a long time. Because I was terrified of exactly what's happening to you right now. The fear. The stigma. The way people look at you differently. But you're not afraid anymore? I'm terrified every single day. I just got better at hiding it. Against every protocol, every boundary, every rule I'd followed for 7 years, I gave him my personal number. Stayed after my shifts ended. Met him in his room when I should have been going home. Told him things I'd never told anyone. About Kingsley. About the betrayal. About how I moved to Seoul to disappear. About the loneliness of hiding. About fearing I'd die alone because I was too afraid to let anyone close enough to love me. He told me things too. About his childhood. About violence and survival. About choices made out of desperation that became a lifestyle. About how he'd built an empire on fear, but had never felt more afraid than right now, lying in a hospital bed, betrayed by someone inside his own organization, and now carrying a diagnosis he never asked for. 2 people had tried to destroy him at the same time. One with poison. One with silence. We were 2 people living with the same virus, the same fear, the same secret. And in that hospital room, late at night when the rest of the world was sleeping, we weren't a nurse and a patient. We weren't a Nigerian woman and a Korean gangster. We were just 2 people who understood each other in a way nobody else could. I knew it was dangerous. Knew I was crossing lines. But I couldn't stop. And someone noticed. 3 days ago, 2 in the morning, my phone lit up. A text from one of the other nurses on my unit. Everyone knows. I'm so sorry. I read it 3 times before my brain processed the words. My chest went cold. 7 years of being careful. Gone. Just like that. I called her immediately. What do you mean everyone knows? Your status. Someone overheard you talking to him. Or maybe they saw your medication. I don't know. But it's all over the hospital. I'm so sorry, Zainab. I hung up. Sat on my bathroom floor. And for the first time in 7 years, I let myself completely fall apart. By morning, the whispers had started. By afternoon, I was in the nursing director's office with HR present. Zainab, we need to discuss your assignment to patient Kim Ji-hoon. What about it? It's come to our attention that you may have developed an inappropriate relationship with this patient. I've provided excellent care. We're not questioning your clinical skills. But there have been concerns raised about boundaries. Late-night visits. Personal phone calls. And there's the matter of your shared diagnosis. The room went silent. There it was. Out in the open. The thing I'd spent 7 years hiding. My medical status is protected information. Who told you? The HR rep shifted uncomfortably. We received an anonymous complaint expressing concern about potential bias in your care given your personal experience with HIV. Bias? I'm one of the most qualified people in this hospital to treat HIV patients. Nevertheless, we feel it's best if we reassign Mr. Kim to another nurse. Effective immediately. I stood up. You're removing me from his care because I'm HIV positive. We're removing you because of boundary concerns, which only became concerns after someone illegally disclosed my private medical information. The nursing director leaned forward. Zainab, please sit down. We're trying to handle this delicately. Delicately? You're discriminating against me. We're protecting patient care. An anonymous complaint has been filed with the nursing board. They'll be conducting an investigation into whether your judgment was compromised. The room spun. An investigation? Yes. Standard procedure. You'll need to provide documentation, submit to interviews, possibly a competency review. This is insane. I haven't done anything wrong. Then you have nothing to worry about. But the director's tone said otherwise. I was dismissed. Walked out of that office in a daze. Within hours, I'd been pulled off all my cases. Colleagues who'd been friendly for years suddenly had excuses not to work with me. That night, I went to see Ji-hoon. I wasn't assigned to him anymore. But I needed to tell him what was happening. What I'd lost by trying to save him. Security stopped me at his door. Sorry, Nurse Adebayo. Mr. Kim's care team has changed. You're no longer authorized. I just need 5 minutes. I have my orders. I stood there, staring at that closed door, and realized how completely I'd destroyed my life. The next morning, I was called into the nursing director's office again. This time, she was alone. And there was paperwork on her desk. Resign quietly, and this all goes away. She slid the resignation letter across her desk. Pre-written. Just needed my signature. You want me to quit? I want you to have options. Right now, you're facing an investigation that could take months. Your name will be in the system. Your status on record. Even if you're cleared, and I'm sure you will be, the damage is done. Every hospital in Seoul will know. Every future employer will ask questions. So you're asking me to protect your hospital's reputation. I'm asking you to protect your career. Sign this. We'll give you a glowing recommendation, a severance package, and this whole situation disappears quietly. And if I don't? She was quiet for a moment. Then we continue with the investigation. The board will ask invasive questions. Your entire medical history will be scrutinized. Your personal life. Your relationship with Mr. Kim. It will be humiliating. And even if you're exonerated, do you really think you can work here after all of this? I stared at that paper. 7 years of my life. 7 years of perfect performance, sacrifice, hiding, loneliness. Reduced to a single resignation letter on a desk. I need time to think. You have until end of day. I left that office and did something reckless. I called Ji-hoon. He answered on the first ring. Zainab, I've been trying to reach you. They won't let me see you. What's happening? They know. About me. About us. They're trying to force me to resign. Silence. Then, where are you? I'm at the hospital. But I can't be seen with you. It'll make everything worse. Meet me. Tonight. I'll send you an address. Ji-hoon, I can't. They're already destroying you. What's worse than that? He had a point. That night, I met him at a private room in a restaurant I could never afford. Security outside. Dangerous-looking men who nodded as I passed. Ji-hoon was sitting alone, looking healthier than I'd seen him. The medication was working. His eyes were clearer. His hands steady. You look good, I said, sitting down. Because of you. He poured me tea. Tell me everything. So I did. The leak. The whispers. The reassignment. The investigation. The resignation letter waiting for my signature. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'll buy the hospital. I almost laughed. What? I'll buy the entire hospital. Fire everyone who did this to you. Make them beg for their jobs. Ji-hoon, you can't just do that. I can. I have the money. I have the connections. One phone call and I can make this go away. That's not how this works. You can't just throw money at discrimination and make it disappear. Why not? Money solves everything else. Because then you're proving them right. That you're dangerous. That I'm compromised. That we're exactly what they think we are. He slammed his hand on the table. They're destroying you for showing me basic humanity. For giving me hope when I wanted to die. And you want me to do nothing? I want you to let me handle this my way. Your way is signing that paper and disappearing. Again. How many times are you going to run, Zainab? That hit harder than I expected. I'm not running. I'm surviving. By making yourself smaller and smaller until there's nothing left? That's not survival. That's slow death. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I've spent my entire life being afraid. Afraid of weakness. Afraid of showing vulnerability. Afraid that if people saw who I really was underneath all of it, they'd destroy me. You taught me that I don't have to be afraid anymore. And now you're asking me to watch you be afraid? To hide again. This is different. How? I didn't have an answer. He leaned forward. You saved my life. Not just medically. You gave me a reason to want to live. You showed me that this virus doesn't have to be a death sentence. That I can have a future. And I will not sit here and watch them take yours away. So, what do you suggest? You buy the hospital, fire everyone, and then what? I go back to work while everyone whispers about how the gangster's girlfriend got special treatment. You're not my girlfriend. The words stung more than they should have. He must have seen it on my face. Because he softened. I didn't mean it like that. I meant you're not someone who needs a man to fight her battles. You're the strongest person I've ever met. But strength doesn't mean fighting alone. The silence stretched between us. But I wish you were, he said quietly. I looked up, startled. My girlfriend. Not now. Not like this. Not while you're losing everything because of me. But someday, when this is over, when you've won and you're free, I'd like to take you to dinner. As equals. Not as a patient and nurse. Just as two people who understand each other. Ji-hoon. Don't answer now. Just think about it. And think about this, I've always fought alone too. Maybe it's time we both stop. I went home that night and stared at my ceiling until dawn. Thinking about everything I'd built. Everything I'd hidden. Everything I stood to lose. By morning, I'd made my decision. I didn't sign the resignation letter. Instead, I wrote a post. Published it on every social media platform I had. My face. My name. My truth. My name is Zainab Adebayo. I'm a 32-year-old infectious disease nurse in Seoul. I've been HIV positive and undetectable for 7 years. I'm not a danger to my patients. I'm not compromised. I'm not less qualified because I live with the very condition I treat. I'm proof that people with HIV can live full, healthy, productive lives. And I'm done hiding. I posted it at 6 in the morning. By noon, it had been shared thousands of times. By evening, news outlets were calling. Patient advocacy groups. Other healthcare workers living with HIV. People thanking me. People condemning me. People sharing their own stories. The hospital released a statement. Professional. Measured. We support all our employees and are committed to non-discrimination. But social media doesn't let you hide behind corporate speak. Ji-hoon called me the day after my post went viral. You did it. I don't know if I did the right thing. You did the brave thing. That's more important. They're still investigating me. I might still lose my license. Then we fight that too. But you're not fighting alone anymore. He was right. Messages poured in. Other nurses with chronic illnesses. Patients I'd treated over the years. Advocacy organizations offering support. Then something unexpected happened. A lawyer specializing in medical discrimination reached out. She'd seen my post. She took my case pro bono. If this story is resonating with you, please subscribe to Afro Seoul Romance Tales. Stories like this need to be told. And your support helps us reach more people who need to hear them. The investigation dragged on for weeks. Humiliating interviews. Questions about my sex life, my medication adherence, my judgment. They wanted to find something. Anything. A crack they could exploit. But I answered every single one. With my lawyer present. With my head held high. Because somewhere between that supply closet and that restaurant, I'd stopped being the woman who stayed small. Then, 3 days before their decision was due, my lawyer called. We need to talk. There's been a development. My stomach dropped. Bad? Just unexpected. Can you come to my office? When I arrived, she was smiling. Sit down. You need to see this. She showed me letters. Dozens of them. From patients I'd treated over the years. From colleagues who'd worked beside me. From advocacy organizations. All submitted to the nursing board in support of me. They can't ignore this, Zainab. The media attention, the public support, these testimonials. They have no grounds to revoke your license. So I won. Not yet. But you're going to. 2 weeks later, the nursing board's investigation concluded. No violations found. No evidence of compromised care. No basis for disciplinary action. I kept my license. But the victory felt hollow at first. The nursing board cleared me, but the letter came with a footnote. While no violations were found, healthcare professionals are reminded to maintain appropriate boundaries with patients. A reminder. A warning. A quiet way of saying, you won. But we're watching. The hospital welcomed me back with professional smiles and carefully worded emails. My colleagues were polite. Distant. The kind of distance that says, we know the rules say we can't discriminate. But we still think you're different. For the first 2 weeks, I wondered if I'd made a mistake. If signing that resignation letter and disappearing would have been easier. Then a patient changed everything. She was 28. Just diagnosed. Terrified. Sitting in her hospital bed crying while her family stood in the hallway, afraid to even touch her. She saw my badge. You're Nurse Adebayo. I saw your post. I nodded. You're really positive? For 7 years. Yes. She grabbed my hand. And you're okay? You're really okay. I squeezed back. I'm really okay. And you will be too. She cried harder. But this time, from relief. That's when I knew. This was why I fought. Not for the hospital. Not for my career. Not even for myself. For her. For every terrified person sitting in a hospital bed who needed to see that life doesn't end with a diagnosis. More patients started requesting me specifically. People who'd seen my story. People living with HIV who wanted a nurse who understood. The hospital couldn't hide me anymore. Not when patients were demanding my care. The hospital offered me my full position back. Even a promotion. They called it recognizing my valuable contribution to patient care. I called it covering their asses. I accepted. On my terms. I asked for sensitivity training for all staff on chronic illness discrimination. For policy changes protecting healthcare workers' medical privacy. For support groups for medical professionals living with HIV. They agreed to everything. Ji-hoon recovered fully. Got to undetectable status within 4 months. 3 months after my investigation ended, he called. Dinner. I smiled. As equals. As equals. We went to that same restaurant. But this time, no security outside the door. No hidden room. Just a table by the window. 2 people who'd fought their way back to life. We're taking it slow. He's rebuilding his life. I'm rebuilding mine. We're both learning that healing isn't linear. That trust takes time. He still has his world. I have mine. But we're finding a space where those worlds can meet. Where a Nigerian nurse and a Korean man with a complicated past can just be two people trying to live fully despite what the virus tried to take from us. I don't know where this goes. But I know I'm not hiding anymore. I still work at that hospital. Still face occasional whispers and stares. But I also have patients who specifically request me. Because they trust me. Because they know I understand. I'm still navigating the complexity of being Black, female, and chronically ill in a country that doesn't always know what to do with any of those things. But I'm doing it openly now. Honestly. 7 years after Kingsley told me I got unlucky, I finally see the truth. I didn't get unlucky. I got free. The Mafia boss didn't buy the hospital. He didn't need to. I fought my own battle. Won my own war. And in doing that, I found something more valuable than any revenge Ji-hoon could have handed me. I found myself. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about HIV, about stigma, about the cost of hiding, subscribe to Afro Soul Romance Tales. Share this story. Leave a comment about what it meant to you. Because somewhere out there is another Zainab. Another person living with a secret that's slowly killing them. And maybe, just maybe, they'll see this and realize they don't have to hide anymore either. This is Afro Soul Romance Tales. Stories about love that crosses borders, breaks rules, and challenges everything we think we know about who deserves happiness. Subscribe. Because we're just getting started.